Hello all. This is a little something I recorded earlier. I'm just doing the voiceover over the top of the thing. But I came across one of these challenges on YouTube concerning Kerbal space program. The objective of this challenge being that you launch a spacecraft from Kerbal, from Kerbin rather, and it's got to be no bigger than the core of this central part of this particular ship that's been built here. Now, I built this one myself earlier. I'll give you the link to the challenge and see if you can do any better. But actually the challenge is a load of bullshit. I'm sure the guy's just there to make things blow up. But this is my attempt to meet his challenge. I do know it works because I've trialled it out earlier. But yeah, just thought I'd put something together here. You can see I'm still putting it together as far as this goes. Tanks on the outside, the larger tanks are all jettisonable. Is that a word? Jettisonable. And here we go. All right, we've clicked on launch. And of course, by this stage of the game, I've put Kerbal through a few hoops, so we might trim some of this out. Waiting. Always with the waiting. Come on, Kerbal. Kerbal Space Program chews a fair bit of memory. In fact, it chews so much memory that if you play it for more than, say, 3 hours at a stretch, the computer will abort on you and you'll wind up with a blue screen. But maybe I need to put in a new GPU, who knows. Okay, here we go. All right, on the launch pad, we're going to activate the stability, the SAS, Stability Activation System, full throttle, and away we go. Now, the idea of this challenge is that the central core is the height of everything else that you attach to it. The only rockets are on the central core, so that's what you've got to use. You're not allowed to build above or below the central core, and the idea is to launch, get into orbit of Kerbin, go to the moon, that's M-U with an umlaut N, and land on the moon. Now, I've taken it one step further. I've actually put solar panels on this thing so I can generate electricity. I've got an antenna on it so I can communicate back to Kerbin. And on the nose of the thing, at one stage or another, it'll zoom in, you'll have a look. I've got recovery parachutes on it. So the idea, I've extended the challenge a little bit. I'm not just going to the moon and then landing, I'm actually coming back. So let's have a look and see how we go. So we're into a gravity turn at the moment. You can see on the heads-up display down below there, and there you can see the spacecraft tilting. We've actually got a fair bit of acceleration on board. So we're heading for orbit. So at the moment it's pulling fuel from the outer of the larger tanks, the 4 larger tanks on the outside. You'll notice well, if you know Kerbal, but you'll notice I've got parachutes on the top of the 2 outer sets of tanks. So basically because I want to try and recover them. That does not make that area any larger than the central core, which is the object of the challenge. And there we go, there's the outer tanks, they're depleted, so they're gone. Chutes deployed, on their way. So now we're using the next set of larger tanks on the outer. If you have a look at these numbers across the top of the screen there, the yellow figures on the left of the central readout and the yellow figures on the right of the central readout, they're telling you about the spacecraft. They're giving you a trajectory. And the one in the middle, that's telling you situation right here, right now. Now, I'm cheating a little bit. The guy in the challenge doesn't use MechJeb. MechJeb is automation. And as far as I'm concerned, that's okie dokie because all spacecraft are automated. So MechJeb in this instance is not being utilised. I'm using the spacecraft's internal stabilising mechanisms. That's what the white SAS is that you see on the display down the bottom centre of the screen. So at the moment we're just guiding it to orbit. So the fuel in the outer tanks is running down, making good upward velocity. There's the parachutes. I just highlighted the parachutes there for you. So once those outer tanks are depleted, we'll jettison them. We're up to about 13,000, 14,000 metres and accelerating rapidly. There we go, there's the next set of tanks gone, and because the vehicle was moving a little bit quick at that point in the atmosphere, the parachutes are not going to open because they've been damaged, so away it goes. Now, you'll see smaller tanks attached to the core. They're not being drained at the moment, they're for later use. The larger tanks are the ones that I'm using to get to orbit and trans-moon injection, so to take me out to the moon. The gravity turn's underway. We've really got some pace on board now. We're almost up to a minute before apoapsis. Apoapsis being the highest point in the trajectory. So we've got to get up to apoapsis, which is orbital height, and then we circularise the orbit. So the spacecraft's heating up, as it is wont to do when it's anywhere under 35,000 metres. So actually, I'm surprised the thing doesn't self-destruct, but anyway, there you go. So we're ripping through the atmosphere. Actually, if you watch any of the SpaceX launches, from time to time, you, depending on the time of day and how dark the sky is, you will get to see the Falcon 9 glow as it runs through the upper atmosphere. Lots and lots of friction in the upper atmosphere. So we're throttling back a little bit now. Don't need all that velocity. Trying to save a little bit of fuel. We're almost there. All right, levelling out that gravity turn. You notice the next set of tanks don't have parachutes attached to them because what's the point? They're only going to be destroyed. So these tanks will just be cast back into Kerbal's atmosphere. We're almost up to minimal orbital height, 63,000 metres. Minimal orbital height in Kerbal space program is 70,000 metres. We'll have main engine cut off very shortly. And main engine cut off. And there go the depleted tanks. So we coast up to apoapsis now, and if you watch the two grey boxes on the left side of the screen, you'll see us set up a circularisation of the orbit. Of course, right here, I'm making some little corrections that should have been made on the ground. I'm enabling crossfeed through the now attached tanks. I was supposed to have been able to crossfeed through an automation process, but I screwed that up. Here we go, it's set up now to circularise the orbit. The spacecraft is aligning itself with its trajectory marker, and it'll go into a time warp situation once the counter at the top centre reaches 70,000. You can see over on the left there, I'm making some more adjustments because the drogue chutes on the core are in the wrong place. This sometimes happens when you fuck around with the staging in the vehicle assembly hall, vehicle assembly building, the VAB. So yeah, a little bit of shuffling going on there. There we go. We've reached minimal orbit height as far as Kerbin's concerned. Yes, the music is annoying. I can turn it down, but to be perfectly honest, I sort of like having it playing in the background while I'm playing Kerbal. Right, there we go. Okay, we've achieved circularisation. Right, now we're setting up our trans-Mun injection. It's called a Homan Transfer. So we aim for a point in the sky where the target will be once we get there. Right, coming around. Right, now it goes into a time warp scenario because we don't want to sit here all day waiting for it to get to the other side of the planet. If you've never played Kerbal Space Program and you like rocket ships, I can guarantee you will spend hours and hours playing this program. It is wonderful, and even though the physics aren't perfect, it draws you in. As you can tell, it's got me. Righto, trans-Mun injection underway. Very powerful set of main engines, which I've got to be honest, makes landing a little bit tricky. Okay, burn is complete. And now we'll go into another time warp because it's 4.5 hours, or just over 4.5 hours to the Mun. And we don't want to stick around that long. go. So we'll just warp out to the encounter position where we come into contact with the sphere of influence of the moon, mun, whatever you want to call it. Here we go, time warp complete. Let's have a little look around. There's Kerbal, and there's the mun. Right, at this stage we've got no electricity. Why don't we have electricity? Because our solar panel is not pointing anywhere near Kerbal's sun. So we'll just tilt the spacecraft around a little bit, make sure we get some sun on that sail. There we go. We're making power. Sometimes happens. That's enough of that. Righto, let's zoom in, take ourselves right up to the SOI, the sphere of influence. And there we go. Alright, so you can see by that, unless we adjust our trajectory, we're going to fly right into the heart of the moon. So we're just changing our trajectory a little bit so that we can come in close to the moon without actually hitting it, and we'll circularise our orbit there. A slight adjustment in trajectory. Go, and we've just discovered that the staging of our sets of tanks is not correct. So, oh dear, all the fuel that I thought I had, I don't have. Anyway, we'll see how we go. Setting up now to circularise the orbit at periaps. Okay, here we go. Zoom in on a time warp. We circularise our orbit. Enormously powerful engines, probably well and truly overpowered for the job they're doing right now. Alright, now we're going to figure out where are we going to land. It's got to be on the daylit side so that we can get energy from the solar cells, but we need to be within communication of Kerbal. Setting this up here. So you can see we're setting up a descent. We're going to come into the big crater, the big dark mark on the moon. All right, that's our next manoeuvre point. Okay, so we've set up our descent manoeuvre. Not a little bit of a time warp. If it wasn't for the time warp, Kerbal would be such a boring program. But at least you can zip between different points where you need to take control, which is brilliant. Yep, zooming around the planetoid, the moon. Oh, hugely overpowered, those engines. Alright, so now we're on a descent profile. And we'll want to spin the spacecraft around so that we're facing in the right direction. Landing gear is going down. This is a purely aesthetic thing, but I like the spaceship to be upright. Thank you very much. There we go. Right, 16,300 metres and dropping rapidly. So we'll give it a little bit of a zoom. Okay, coming in very quickly. Well over 400 metres a second, so got to try and correct that. Otherwise we slam into the surface, which I got to tell you has been done many times. Alright, 5,000 metres above the surface. Now you see we're using MacJeb on the left hand side. We're using the Smart AS. That's the Smart Attitude Stability System. And it's following a retrograde trajectory. We've set it up so that it follows a descent profile, and it'll stay on that profile. All we need to do is adjust the thrust from time to time. Make sure we don't slam into the surface at any more than, say, 5 metres a second. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. So we've washed off all that orbital speed. The vehicle is sinking towards the surface. Landing struts are out. Profile's looking good. Dropping down. Yep, we're dropping quite rapidly. But then again, the engines are quite capable of a quick correction. Heaps and heaps of power available. You can see our shadow appearing there on the lunar surface. Subtle adjustments being made all the way down. Very small adjustments because the engines are so powerful. coming down, coming down, closer and closer and closer, just about there. We don't want to touch down at much more than, well, actually we don't want to touch down at more than 5 metres a second, less preferably. And we're just about there. Right. And there you go, we're down. Done. So at this point the challenge has been met, the challenge has been satisfied. My modified challenge is to bring the thing back. So we have a good look around. Yep, everything hunky-dory. Lovely. What juice have we got? We're down to minimal. So we've got to get off the surface, we've got to circularise the orbit, then we've got to do a trans-Kerbal injection. Accelerating rapidly, we'll take it up to around 8,000 metres and then we'll circularise. There we go, main engine cut off. Yep, setting up a circularisation. Pulling up the landing gear because it's done its job. Going into a little bit of a warp scenario here so that we're not sitting around picking our nose forever and ever, amen. And now we circularise the orbit. Whoa, too much power. Cool. Alright, now at this point we go about plotting a return trajectory. So return from a moon. So in other words, return from a body that is within the sphere of influence of a major body. So we've set up our return, and as you can see by the yellow-red sliding gauge on the right of the central display, we don't have enough juice. And at this point, I'll leave you in absolute disgust, because I thought I'd planned this thing to the nth degree, but I obviously didn't. Yes, we can manage to reach escape trajectory from the moon, even by exhausting all of our reaction control system propellant. Still couldn't make it back. So I had to leave the thing in orbit of Kerbal, and it's a long elliptical orbit. Anyway, if you've watched this far, you've done very well. If you want to take on the challenge, by all means, take on the challenge. Cheers.